Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about some of the obstacles that you may be facing if you are a black woman, or I suppose this could really apply to anyone who's looking to date outside of their race for the first time, but since I'm a black woman, that's the experience that I feel the most comfortable talking to. So we're going to just talk about maybe some of the obstacles that you've been experiencing in trying to date outside of your race for the very first time. And I just kind of want to make the disclaimer because, I took a decent size break, a pretty sizable, in my opinion at least, break from YouTube, and in that time I'm so grateful. I had so many new people join this community, and so I kind of just want to make a little disclaimer for the new people who may not really know me or know what I'm about or what I stand for. And so I make videos that focus on relationships between black women and white men because that's the type of relationship that I am in. And I don't claim at all to be a dating expert, a dating coach. I mean, to be honest, I don't feel like anyone is truly a dating expert, but that's a whole other conversation. So yeah, I make videos that speak to just my personal experience, my anecdotal experience. I am not here to tell you that my experience is the standard, is the norm, is the universal truth, right? That is not what I'm here for. And I just also want to make the disclaimer that although I am in an interracial relationship and I talk about the dynamics of that particular relationship type, I do not think that interracial relationships are superior to same-race relationships or inferior to them. I think fundamentally, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, I feel that fundamentally love is love. So I want to start off by addressing some of the things that really are outside of your control, that you don't necessarily have much say in. For the United States, overall, we're a pretty racially stratified and segregated nation. I would also say too that we are divided by class, but that's something that we've just kind of decided collectively that we don't talk about, but that is very much so a thing. And we'll talk about that actually in an upcoming video. But overall in this nation, we're a pretty racially segregated population, and some of it is by force, a lot of it is by choice. And even in more diverse cities, you definitely see more diversity within friendships, like friend groups, within relationships, but still overall pretty segregated. And secondly, something that you have to just kind of, at least I believe that you have to accept, is that generally speaking, I think overwhelmingly, people just tend to be more attracted to those who look like them, those who come from similar backgrounds as they do. And I feel like that's just kind of a biological thing. I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with it. And you will find that, at least I see this a lot in comments and emails that I receive, that a lot of times people just kind of fall into relationships with people who are the same race as them, even if they're not necessarily more attracted to those individuals, but they end up in those relationships because a lot of times they're easier. A lot of times there's, an easier proximity and it's just more familiar. And we're going to come back to familiar later in the video and the perks of familiarity. Let's talk about some of the factors that I think are more so within your control and that you can kind of I don't want to say manipulate because I feel like it has such a negative connotation, but yeah, the fact is that you do have more immediate, more direct control over. So this first thing, I would say that this is more of, I feel like it's going to come off as a judgment. I hope you know that that's not what I'm trying to do here. This is more so of an observation. And this is an observation that I have noticed among black women because that's, with this channel, that's who I am engaging with more. I hear from a lot of black women that they don't want to, participate in any dating apps. They don't want to download any dating apps. No Bumble, no Hinge, no Match, no Plenty of Fish, None of them. They do not want to meet anyone. They do not want to use dating apps. And they also don't want to initiate any sort of contact with a man in, real life, in person, in the physical world. They don't want to initiate contact. They do not want to approach. And they don't, from the comments that they're sharing with me, they don't really want to do anything, or they're not, maybe they do want to, but they're not actively taking really any steps to alter their life in a way that would create space for someone to come into it. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about it a little bit. Let's tease it out. Let's flesh this out some. To me, what seems to be going on here is that it's like these individuals, these women, are trying to maybe even overly apply very staunchly traditional methods and behaviors and ways of being in a situation that for the most part is really non-traditional. So let me kind of break down what I mean by that. If you are trying to, here in the United States, if you're trying to enter into an interracial relationship, you're already doing something, especially as a Black woman, and especially as a Black woman who is entertaining the idea of maybe being with a white man. You are doing something. You are entertaining an idea that is very much so non-traditional. Like, that is not very traditional at all. Now, the relationship dynamic that the two of you may have could be very much so traditional, right? But like, the actual partnership in our nation is definitely not traditional. Remember, there was a time when this relationship dynamic was outlawed, was illegal. And even though it's no longer illegal, in a lot of circles and a lot of pockets, it's still looked down upon. It's still seen as taboo, or something that people are resisting against, or at minimum just don't particularly care for. So I guess what I'm trying to get at by saying that is, I think you have to be a teensy bit cautious and or careful about overly utilizing these, or allowing these staunchly traditional ways of being to color. That's the only word I can think of. I told you, y'all, a little foggy today, but to just like really color your lens on how you navigate the interracial dating scene. Because on one hand, definitely not all. There is nothing, there's no situation of all when it comes to human beings, but a lot of very traditional people are going to be with people that look like them, because that will maintain the traditional status quo. Now, there are many men who hold traditional values, who are, traditional American values, who are not opposed to interracial relationships, and who are very open to traditional relationships, or who are very open to interracial relationships. That's what I'm trying to say. So definitely you can have both. You can. But I'm just saying that it's possible that you taking this approach could be limiting your options. Now, you may look at it in one way of like, well, that's great, because if they're not willing to do this, then I'm not interested. I wouldn't be interested in them anyways. And I think that's totally fine. And I want to say this. If fundamentally initiating contact, approaching a man is something that goes against like your fundamental belief systems or values, I don't want you to compromise that. I don't ever want to encourage someone to compromise their fundamental values unless it's something that, infringes upon someone else's rights or someone else's humanity. But girl, fundamentally, if that's how you feel, I support that, and I am not here to discourage you or to judge you. What I will say is, if deep down, though, that's not something that you fundamentally believe, but you are reluctant to change your ways because of what other people believe or what other people will think or potentially say, that doesn't hold to me. Like, that, it doesn't hold for me. And honestly, if you care about what other people have to think, like, if you care about what other people have to think and what they'll say to the point that it guides and influences the choices you make in your life, then I'm going to be honest with you, interracial relationships may not be for you anyways, because people will say things and people will think things. And something else that I kind of want to break down is just like this idea of approaching or initiating. I will be the first to say that if it's not already clear, I'm probably not, I don't even think there's a probably, I really don't see myself as the most traditional woman. I don't think I ever have been. I don't think I ever will be. And I think it's okay. I think I'm okay. But what I will say is that I see a lot of talk about how women should never approach, should never initiate with men. I remember that there was a comment left on my channel where someone said, be approached. If you start chasing, you'll always be chasing. And I just kind of feel like I do understand the essence of what they're saying, but I also feel like there's a difference between making contact, approaching, and chasing. To me, chasing is I think of chasing as, texting someone over and over and over, consistently texting someone, and they're very inconsistent with texting you back, or calling someone, over and over and over, and they rarely call you back, or if they do call you back, they're very inconsistent with it. I see chasing as consistently making plans with someone, initiating, making the plans with someone, and they don't really ever take the time to make plans with you. And when they do decide to hang out with you, it's because you had to, basically hound them to hang out with you. And in general, I think we kind of have to be a little cautious with these blanket statements that we make, because again, there's no universal, there's no all when it comes to human relationships or human behavior. I'll use myself as the example here and be kind of vulnerable and transparent with you all. I think I've told this story before, but me and Michael, we met online, and we met on Bumble. And if you're familiar at all with that app, then you know that on that particular app, you have to, as the woman, you're the one that really initiates with the man, because they're not allowed to message you first. So if you two match, then it is on you to initiate with them. And so I technically initiated with Michael. And whenever we met, when we had our first date, I remember that he was so shy, but I didn't know, I didn't know that he was like that. I didn't know that he was as quiet as he is, because I didn't really know him. And so, he didn't really, in my opinion, make the best first impression. So, but at the end of the date, he had planned out our next date. He had bought me windshield wipers for my car. He replaced the windshield wipers on my car and asked for my phone number. And that comes from, and here we are now. And all of the relationship that we have now comes from me initiating and him kind of making a lackluster first impression. And so you don't always know, you just don't always know what you're gonna get until you give it time. So let me just be clear, and let me also wrap this point up. I don't feel like you need to be hounding men out here, just giving out your number left and right, just chasing men all over the place. That is not what I am saying. But what I am saying is that if you want to, if you want to be found, if you want to be chosen, you have to be seen. You have to be visible. Because not only is that cold approach of just a stranger approaching another stranger on the street or at the bar, not only is that just really kind of starting in the modern era to kind of die down or die out, I think a lot of us are really over-exaggerating how common it really was in the first place. I was reading an article about how 2/3 of romantic relationships began as friendships. And that brings me to the point of you may be struggling because your circles just aren't, like your inner circles and even outer circles really aren't that diverse. Like there's not a lot of diversity within your inner and outer circle. Overall, people are a lot less reluctant to approach you and to initiate conversation with you, which is, what ultimately can lead to a romantic relationship if they are familiar with you and if they feel a sense of comfort. And it's a lot easier to feel a sense of comfort with the person that is in your friend group because you already have like a built-in commonality, right? Like if your friend Steve is friends with, Joanna and you're Jim, it's easier for you to approach Joanna because you have Steve in common and you both presumably really love and care about Steve. And if the both of you love and care about Steve, then there are qualities that Steve has that clearly you both value, and therefore it makes sense that if you two came together, you would probably already have shared values, which has been demonstrated through your friendship. Also, if you have a shared friend group, like there are things that you're going to do together. You might go bowling or, house party or hiking or whatever, whatever else you may do. And you'll get to see that person in a different light and see, how compatible you are. So I really, really encourage you in the most organic and natural ways that you can to try and diversify your inner and outer circles. I think that is so important. It's important for you because it allows you to have new perspectives in your life that will help you to grow as a person and as a person of the world. And again, it will put you in groups and in situations and dynamics that will make you more familiar to someone, which will make them more or less reluctant to approach you and to, initiate contact with you. One commonality in the comments and in the emails that I receive that I see is this reluctance to approach because of the fear of, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I offend this person? What if they're not into this certain type of music? Or what if, I don't understand them? Or what if they don't understand me? And all of this just like fear and anxiety. And someone who has dealt with a lot of anxiety in life and a lot of fear, I have found time and time again that the greatest kryptonite, the greatest counter to fear and to ignorance is intelligence and exposure. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Hope it made sense. I feel like some parts were a little rambly, but thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, stay safe, be well. I'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.